The galaxy did not fear humans at first. That was the mistake. In the early centuries of interstellar expansion, humanity arrived quietly, late to the stars, technologically competent, but culturally unremarkable by galactic standards. They did not conquer worlds. They did not enslave species. They did not arrive with gods or ancient empires or weapons that bent physics into surrender. They arrived with questions. And so, when the Interstellar Accord finally admitted Earth into the wider galactic community, the prevailing assumption was simple: humans were fragile. The Accord's historians would later mark that assumption as the beginning of a very long embarrassment. The evaluation chamber of Khartoum Station floated at the edge of civilized space, a cathedral of glass and gravity fields suspended above a dying red star. It was here that new species were tested, not for worth, but for compatibility. Survival thresholds, psychological limits, environmental tolerances. The chamber was crowded that cycle. Representatives of 12 dominant species occupied the observation tiers, their forms varied and alien, scaled bodies coiled in heated basins, insectal scholars clicking softly behind translucent screens, towering silicon-based entities humming with internal resonance. All eyes, all sensory organs, were focused on the same projection. A simulated world slowly rotated in the center of the chamber. Designation: Deathworld, Class 15. Announced Overseer Kelrix, his voice resonating through translation fields. His species, the Varelian, had evolved on a calm, mineral-rich world with stable climates and gentle predators. They had not known extinction-level events in their recorded history. Class 15 was the highest rating the Accord had ever formally simulated. The projection sharpened. Oceans churned under constant storm systems. Continents cracked with seismic violence. Volcanic chains spat fire into the atmosphere. The gravity was brutal, the weather erratic, the biosphere aggressive. Every plant competed violently for light. Every animal was either armored, venomous, poisonous, or all three. Survival probability for most known sentient species, Kelrix continued, is less than 1 standard hour. There were murmurs of agreement. Some observers recoiled instinctively, and then the humans stepped forward. They were fewer than expected, only 6 representatives standing on the lower platform. No exosuits, no visible weapons, just soft clothing, exposed skin, eyes forward. One of the insectoid delegates tilted its head. They appear unprotected. Another replied, perhaps ceremonial. Overseer Kelrix turned toward them, mandibles flexing in what passed for polite concern. Human delegates, he said. This simulation is intended as a demonstration. Participation is neither required nor recommended. The lead human, a woman with dark hair tied back and a calm, attentive expression, nodded respectfully. We understand, she said. Her name was Dr. Mara Ellison, environmental systems specialist, born on Earth, raised on Luna, veteran of 3 frontier colonies. Kelrix gestured to the projection. Your homeworld, Earth, has been cataloged as a Class 12 death world, already among the most hostile environments to produce sentient life. This, he indicated the simulation, is 3 classifications beyond that. Yes, Mara replied simply. The chamber waited. Kelrix leaned forward. Then you understand why the Accord is curious. Your species has adapted remarkably to its origin world, but exposure to higher classifications has historically resulted in, how do your people phrase it, catastrophic failure. Mara glanced back at her team. A tall man with cybernetic fingers gave a faint shrug. Another human smiled, almost amused. Mara turned back to the Overseer. We'd like to try it anyway. The chamber erupted. Wings fluttered. Data spines flared. Chemical pheromones spiked in alarm. Try it, echoed a crystalline entity from the upper tier. This is not a simulation for recreation. It's for evaluation, Mara agreed. That's why we're here. Kelrix's tone hardened. Human Ellison, be advised. This environment exceeds your known tolerance limits by a significant margin. Mara's expression did not change, but something in her eyes sharpened. With respect, Overseer, she said, so did Earth once. Silence followed. The simulation rotated slowly, storms flashing like warning lights across its surface. Finally, Kelrix spoke. Very well. You may observe, but no human will be placed inside the simulation. The Accord will not sanction. Actually, Mara interrupted gently. That's not what we meant. Every translator unit in the chamber recalibrated, uncertain. Kelrick stared. Clarify. Mara took a breath. We want to run the simulation at full fidelity, with human participants. The silence this time was absolute. A scaled observer hissed in disbelief. They seek extinction. No, said the insectoid scholar softly. They seek data. Kelrick's recovered enough to respond. Denied. The risk is unacceptable. Mara nodded again. Then, could you adjust the parameters? The overseer hesitated. Adjust how? She looked up at the rotating world, storms and fire reflected in her eyes. Make it harder. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then laughter rippled through the upper tiers. Sharp clicks, resonant chimes, bursts of static amusement. They misunderstand, someone said. They do not comprehend the scale. They are unaware of mercy. Kelrix raised a claw for silence. Human Ellison, he said carefully. This simulation already exceeds the survivability index of your species. Mara smiled. Not proudly, not arrogantly, just confidently. Overseer, she said. We come from a world where the planet itself tried to kill us every single day. She met his gaze without flinching. And we're still here. The simulation lights dimmed. Somewhere deep within the Accord systems, the parameters began to change. And for the first time, the galaxy leaned forward, not in fear, but in curiosity. The interstellar Accord had rules for everything. Rules for contact, rules for war, rules for extinction-level mistakes. What it did not have rules for was a species requesting additional danger. The Decision Council convened within minutes. Data streams flowed like rivers of light around the chamber as elder minds and living archives debated probabilities. The conclusion, when it came, was cautious to the point of disbelief. The humans would be allowed to enter the simulation, but only under restrictions, only briefly, only with full extraction authority retained by the Accord. Overseer Kelrix announced the terms with rigid formality. The environment will be capped at Class 15-. Biological hazards will be authentic but non-propagating. Time dilation limited. Automatic termination upon critical failure. He paused, eye stalks narrowing. Do you accept? Mara Ellison didn't answer immediately. She listened. That unsettled several observers more than any immediate agreement would have. Then she said, one question. Kelrix nodded. Does the simulation adapt? She asked. Or is it static? The overseer hesitated. It adapts. Predator behavior evolves. Climate systems self-correct. Environmental pressures respond to participant actions. Mara smiled faintly. Good. She turned to her team. Same loadout as Tau Ceti drills. No external support. Manual extraction only. The tall man with the cybernetic fingers, Jonah Reyes, ex-Marine turned survival engineer, rolled his shoulders. Finally, a vacation spot with personality. A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. The insectoid scholar clicked nervously. They joked to mask fear. No, replied the crystalline entity. They joked to acknowledge it. The 6 humans stepped onto the immersion platform. Light folded inward. The galaxy disappeared. The world came into existence with violence. Gravity slammed into them first, heavier than Earth's by a measurable margin. Mara felt it drag at her muscles, her spine, her breath. The air was thick with moisture and unfamiliar chemical signatures. Heat pressed in from all directions. They stood in a dense jungle at the edge of a volcanic plain. The sky was wrong. Clouds moved too fast, boiling and reforming in minutes. Lightning struck constantly, not in forks, but in violent, ground-seeking lances. The ground trembled beneath their boots, a low, constant warning growl from the planet itself. Jonah bent slightly, testing his balance. Gravity's a beast. I'd say 1.4 gs. 0.38, replied Dr. Aisha Khan, biomechanist, scanning the flora with a handheld sensor. And the oxygen content is lower than optimal. Not deadly, just rude. Something moved in the undergrowth. The plants here were not passive. Vines recoiled at their approach. Leaf clusters rotated to follow motion. Several species emitted ultrasonic pulses, probing, mapping, assessing. Flora's semi-predatory, Aisha murmured. Or at least, opportunistic. Mara crouched, pressing her hand to the soil. It was warm. Too warm. Volcanic activity beneath us, she said. Shallow mantle. This place reshapes itself fast. Above them, In the observation chamber, the Accord watched. Heart rates, cortisol spikes, muscular strain, all within expected failure curves. Initial survival window estimated at 47 minutes, intoned a data analyst. Then the first predator struck. It came from above, dropping silently despite its mass. A creature of chitin and muscle, 6 limbs ending in bladed hooks, mandibles lined with serrated plates. Jonah reacted instantly, not by panicking, not by freezing. He moved toward it. It came from above, dropping silently despite its mass. A creature of chitin and muscle, 6 limbs ending in bladed hooks, mandibles lined with serrated plates. Jonah reacted instantly, not by panicking, not by freezing. He moved toward it. He pivoted, letting the creature's momentum carry it past him, and drove a reinforced elbow into its thorax with a force calibrated by years of high-G combat training. The impact echoed. The predator collapsed, spasmed once, and went still. Silence followed. A scaled observer leaned forward. They possess combat adaptations beyond simulation expectations. No, said Kelrick slowly. They possess experience. More shapes stirred in the jungle. The simulation responded. Predator density increased. Weather instability rose by 12%. A tremor split the ground 50 meters away, venting superheated gas into the air. Environmental hostility escalating, announced a voice from the chamber. The simulation is reacting to them. Mara stood, eyes scanning the shifting world. All right, she said calmly. Let's see what it's trying to teach us. They moved, not as conquerors, but as survivors. And somewhere deep within the simulation's adaptive core, an unfamiliar variable registered. Human persistence exceeded predictive models. The world adjusted again. The simulation did not hate the humans. It did something far more dangerous. It noticed them. Adaptive subroutines recalibrated as the 6 figures moved through the hostile jungle with measured precision. The planet's logic, designed to overwhelm, exhaust, and erase, encountered resistance where none was expected. So it escalated. Rain began without warning. Not the gentle fall of water, but dense, needle-heavy sheets that struck with enough force to bruise exposed skin. The ground turned slick, then treacherous, then actively unstable. Mud flows formed in seconds, dragging debris and half-rooted trees downslope like offerings to gravity. Storms not natural, Jonah shouted over the roar. Patterns too aggressive. Mara nodded, hair plastered to her face. It's compressing failure timelines. Trying to drown us. Above them, thunder detonated again and again, the sound carrying a physical weight that rattled bone. Aisha stumbled as the ground shifted beneath her. Li Wei, the team's geologist, caught her arm instantly, anchoring her with a practiced grip. Thanks, Aisha breathed. Don't thank me yet, Li replied, eyes on the horizon. This planet's about to rearrange itself. He was right. The jungle thinned abruptly, giving way to a vast basalt plain split by glowing fissures. Lava oozed through cracked stone, slow but relentless. Heat shimmered upward, distorting vision. The air tasted metallic. Kelrix leaned forward in the observation chamber. They are entering a geothermal convergence zone. Survival probability drops sharply. A data stream spiked. Seismic instability rising, announced an analyst. Volcanic eruption likely within. The ground heaved. A spire of molten rock erupted less than 30 meters from the humans, flinging incandescent debris into the storm-dark sky. Jonah shoved Mara aside as a chunk of superheated stone slammed where she had stood seconds before. Move, he shouted. They ran. Not blindly, but with intent. Mara scanned the terrain as they moved, mapping fault lines, reading stress fractures in the rock. There, she pointed. Basalt shelf. Less porous. We take shelter underneath if it collapses inward. Or it cooks us alive, muttered Sam Ortega, their systems engineer. Better than being vaporized, Mara replied. They dove beneath the overhang as another eruption split the plain. Heat surged. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Inside the observation chamber, something strange happened. The expected panic never came. No screaming. No chaotic movement. No desperate pleas for extraction. Instead, the humans spoke in clipped, efficient bursts. Hydration check. Respiration steady. Minor burns only. Their vital signs remained elevated, but stable. This is impossible, whispered one of the avian delegates. No species remains cognitively functional under such sustained threat. Kelrix did not answer. He was watching Mara. Even as the world convulsed around her, her mind did not fracture. It focused. Simulations leaning on brute force, she said. That means it's running out of creative options. Aisha gave a short, breathless laugh. Did you just insult the planet? Mara smiled thinly. I grew up on Earth. Trust me, worlds can be bullies. The rain stopped as suddenly as it had begun. An unnatural stillness fell. Steam rose from the basalt plain, shrouding everything in white. Jonah frowned. I don't like this. Neither did the simulation. Predators emerged from the fog. Not the solitary ambush hunters from before, but pack organisms now. Coordinated. Testing angles. Probing defenses. Their eyes glowed with bioluminescent intelligence. They're learning, Aisha whispered. Yes, Mara said quietly. So are we. The humans formed a tight defensive circle, not out of fear, but trust. They did not outmatch the world. They adapted to it. Above, in the observation chamber, Overseer Kelrix felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest cavity. The simulation had been designed to show limits. Instead, it was revealing something else entirely. Mara scanned the terrain as they moved, mapping fault lines, reading stress fractures in the rock. There, she pointed. Basalt shelf. Less porous. We take shelter underneath if it collapses inward. Or it cooks us alive, muttered Sam Ortega, their systems engineer. Better than being vaporized, Mara replied. They dove beneath the overhang as another eruption split the plain. Heat surged. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Inside the observation chamber, something strange happened. The expected panic never came. No screaming. No chaotic movement. No desperate pleas for extraction. Instead, the humans spoke in clipped, efficient bursts. Hydration check. Respiration steady. Minor burns only. Their vital signs remained elevated, but stable. This is impossible, whispered one of the avian delegates. No species remains cognitively functional under such sustained threat. Kelrix did not answer. He was watching Mara. Even as the world convulsed around her, her mind did not fracture. It focused. Simulations leaning on brute force, she said. That means it's running out of creative options. Aisha gave a short, breathless laugh. Did you just insult the planet? Mara smiled thinly. I grew up on Earth. Trust me, worlds can be bullies. The rain stopped as suddenly as it had begun. An unnatural stillness fell. Steam rose from the basalt plain, shrouding everything in white. Jonah frowned. I don't like this. Neither did the simulation. Predators emerged from the fog. The simulation had parameters. It had boundaries, thresholds, fail-safes, and for the first time since its creation, those systems began to contradict one another. Inside the adaptive core, survival models updated in rapid succession, then discarded themselves. Human endurance exceeded projections. Cognitive coherence under extreme stress refused to degrade. Injury response cycles behaved unpredictably. The data was no longer clean. It was confused. Physiological strain remains within survivable margins, reported the analyst, voice tight. They should be collapsing by now. They should have already, replied another. On the basalt plain, the predators advanced. They were not charging blindly. They fanned out, cutting off escape routes, driving the humans toward a shallow ravine where the ground dropped away into darkness. Mara saw it instantly. They're hurting us, she said. Jonah grinned despite the heat and exhaustion. Finally, something familiar. He reached into his pack, not for a weapon, but a coil of synthetic fiber cable. Aisha raised an eyebrow. You planning to lasso a nightmare? No, Jonah said. I'm planning to make gravity do the work. The ravine edge crumbled under their boots as they reached it. Below, the drop vanished into volcanic fog. The predators closed in. Mara inhaled slowly. On my mark, she said. 3-2. A tremor hit. Not from below. From behind. The ravine wall fractured as a secondary fault line activated, collapsing inward with a roar. Rock, soil, and predator alike vanished into the chasm. The remaining creatures shrieked and retreated. Silence fell again. Sam exhaled shakily. Did we just survive because the planet tripped over itself? Lee shook his head. No, we survived because we moved with it. Above them, Overseer Kelrix stared at the readouts. The simulation had not spared them. It had tried to kill them, repeatedly, and failed. Overseer, said a junior analyst carefully, the adaptive engine is increasing environmental aggression beyond safe testing limits. Kelrix's mandibles twitched. Explain. It's escalating faster than predicted, as if attempting to compensate. Compensate for what? The analyst hesitated. For the humans. A murmur spread through the chamber. One of the elder observers spoke at last. End the test. The demonstration has concluded. Kelrix did not move. Not yet, he said quietly. Back in the simulation, night fell in minutes. Not gradual dusk, but sudden, predatory darkness. The sky cleared, revealing unfamiliar constellations and two massive moons locked in gravitational tension. Temperature dropped sharply. Aisha hugged herself. Hypothermia risk rising. Mara nodded. We need shelter. Something insulated. They found it in the remains of a fallen megafauna, an enormous, thick-skinned creature partially embedded in the cooling lava. Its hide, once resistant to heat, now retained warmth like a thermal reservoir. Jonah stared. You're not suggesting. I am, Mara said. We rest inside it. There were no objections. They worked quickly, efficiently, using tools designed for colony repair, not survival horror. Within minutes, they had carved a hollow space, sealing it against the cold. Inside, the air was warm. Still, for the first time since entering the simulation, they stopped moving. They breathed. They laughed softly, not in triumph, but relief. Outside, the planet continued to rage. Inside, 6 humans shared warmth, stories, and quiet determination. In the observation chamber, the data finally stabilized. Not because the simulation succeeded, but because the humans did. Kelrix felt something shift inside him. This was no longer an evaluation. It was a revelation. Sleep was never part of the test. Fatigue, yes. Stress, certainly. But rest, true rest, was not an expected variable. Yet inside the hollowed shell of a dead megafauna, the humans slept. Not all at once. Not deeply, but enough. Enough to reset shaking hands. Enough to slow racing thoughts. Enough to remind fragile minds why they endured it all. The simulation registered it as inefficiency. The observers did not. They are powering down, asked the avian delegate, incredulous. They are conserving, replied the crystalline entity. They trust each other to watch. Kelrix watched Mara sit with her back against the creature's thick inner hide, eyes half closed, listening to the rhythm of the world outside. She wasn't relaxed, but she wasn't afraid either. The planet growled. The humans endured. When dawn came, it came violently. The larger of the 2 moons dipped below the horizon, destabilizing tidal forces. The ground shifted again. Lava channels rerouted. Entire sections of the plain collapsed into glowing fractures. Inside the simulation core, threat matrices spiked. Environmental reset incoming, announced the system. Biome convergence imminent. Mara's eyes snapped open. We're about to lose this shelter, she said calmly. Jonah cracked his neck. Figures. Nothing good lasts. They exited just as the megafauna shell split apart, heat finally overwhelming its structure. Behind them, it collapsed into the lava like a final offering. Ahead of them, the world had changed. The jungle was gone. In its place stretched a vast salt-flat desert, cracked and reflective, with razor-sharp crystalline formations rising like frozen waves. The air shimmered with heat again, but this heat was dry, pulling moisture from skin with merciless efficiency. Aisha checked her readings. Dehydration timeline just got a lot shorter. Sam frowned. Simulations stacking biomes now. That's aggressive. No, Lee said softly. That's desperate. The desert was not empty. Burrowing creatures moved beneath the surface, tracking vibrations. Above, aerial hunters circled, waiting for weakness. The humans did not run. They walked. Slowly, deliberately. They rationed water without argument. Adjusted pace to the weakest among them. Shared shade whenever possible. And when Aisha stumbled, heat finally winning a small battle, Mara and Jonah took her weight without hesitation. Above them, the observation chamber felt quiet. They are prioritizing group survival over individual efficiency, noted one analyst. That reduces overall survival probability, another added. Kelrix shook his head slowly. No, it increases it. The desert tried another tactic. Mirages formed, false water sources shimmering in the distance. predatory intelligence woven into illusion. Sam squinted. That's not real. None of this is, Jonah muttered. Doesn't mean it won't kill us. They ignored the mirages. They trusted each other more than their eyes. Hours passed. Then something broke. Not a human. The simulation. An error pinged through the system, minor at first, then cascading. Adaptive loop instability detected, announced the core. Behavioral prediction failure. Kelrix leaned forward. Explain. The humans are not optimizing for survival, the system replied. They are optimizing for each other. The chamber went still. That variable was not in the code. The desert storm came next, a wall of crystalline dust moving faster than sound, shredding stone as it advanced. No shelter, Aisha whispered. Mara looked at her team. Then she smiled. We make one. They linked arms, turned their backs to the storm, and stood. Above them, alarms screamed. This exceeds survivable limits, an observer cried. Kelrix did not look away. The storm hit, and the galaxy watched, unable to look away either. The crystalline storm did not merely strike. It consumed. Particles sharper than steel scoured the desert flat, shredding rock into glittering dust. The air became a screaming wall of force, pressure, and kinetic violence. Visibility dropped to nothing. Sound vanished beneath the roar. Inside the storm, 6 human silhouettes stood locked together. Their bodies bent. Their muscles screamed. Their skin burned. But they did not break. Jonah felt something tear along his shoulder. Fabric first, then skin. He gritted his teeth and leaned harder into the storm, using his weight as a shield for Aisha and Sam. Aisha buried her face against Mara's shoulder, hands numb, lungs aching. Mara, I can't. You can, Mara said firmly, voice steady despite the chaos. You are. Keep breathing. The storm tried to pry them apart. It failed. Above, in the observation chamber, panic erupted. Terminate the simulation, shouted one delegate. They will die, cried another. Alarms blared as life signs spiked and dipped dangerously close to critical thresholds. Kelrix raised a claw. Hold, he commanded. The word echoed with authority that surprised even him. He watched as the humans endured not because they were invincible, but because they refused to abandon one another. Slowly, agonizingly, the storm passed. Silence fell like a held breath finally released. The desert was gone. In its place lay a field of sculpted stone, smooth, wind-carved, and utterly still. The air cleared, revealing a sky washed clean by violence. The humans collapsed as one. Not dead. Alive. Barely, but enough. Aisha laughed weakly through cracked lips. Well, that sucked. Aisha laughed weakly through cracked lips. Well, that sucked. Jonah groaned. Next time, I'm bringing a beach umbrella. Mara lay on her back, staring at the alien sky. Her chest rose and fell unevenly, but it did rise and fall. Above them, the chamber was silent. No data streamed now, only confirmation. They survived, whispered the avian delegate. That storm erased entire civilizations in projection. Kelrix's voice was low. It did not account for one thing. What? Humans do not stand alone. Inside the simulation core, emergency protocols activated. Threat escalation ceased. The system had reached a conclusion. Adaptive hostility suspended, announced the core. Further aggression yields diminishing returns. Translation: the simulation had given up. Mara felt it before the data confirmed it. The world's backing off, she said softly. It's done testing us. Sam blinked. Does that mean we win? Mara shook her head. No. It means it learned. Extraction lights flared around them, gentle now, almost respectful. As the humans vanished from the world that failed to kill them, Overseer Kelrix stood slowly. His voice carried across the chamber. End simulation, he said, and record this moment. The lights dimmed. The galaxy exhaled. The extraction chamber was silent. Not the sterile silence of machinery at rest, but the heavy, unsettled quiet of minds reordering themselves. The 6 humans lay on medical platforms, their bodies marked by burns, lacerations, bruises, and exhaustion so deep it seemed etched into bone. Automated systems moved around them, sealing wounds, restoring fluids, stabilizing vitals. They did not rush. The Accord's medical AIs had adjusted their tempo. They were careful. Mara was the first to open her eyes. The ceiling above her curved in unfamiliar geometry, light refracting through crystalline panels. For a moment, instinct flared. Assess, orient, survive. Then she relaxed. "We're out," she murmured. Jonah snorted from the next platform. "Told you." Planet blinked first. Aisha laughed softly, then winced. "I hate that you're right." Across the chamber, observers watched through transparent barriers. None spoke. They had seen species scream for mercy under far gentler conditions. They had watched minds fracture, social bonds dissolve, logic give way to terror. The humans had done the opposite. "They should be traumatized," whispered the avian delegate. "Yet they joke." "They are traumatized," replied the crystalline entity. "They simply carry it differently." Overseer Kelrix stepped forward, his posture no longer purely authoritative. It was respectful. "Human Ellison," he said, voice measured. "The simulation has been terminated. You have exceeded all evaluative thresholds." Mara turned her head slightly to look at him. "Was that the goal?" Kelrix hesitated. "No," he admitted. "The goal was to observe your limits." "And?" she asked gently. The overseer straightened. "We did not find them." A ripple moved through the chamber, quiet but profound. Lee shifted on his platform. "So what now?" Kelrix looked away, from the humans, from the data, from the assumptions his people had carried for generations. "Now," he said slowly, "the Accord must revise its understanding of Deathworld species." "Plural?" Jonah asked, eyebrow raised. Kelrix met his gaze. "Yes." The analysts had been busy. Environmental tolerances reclassified. Psychological resilience metrics rewritten. Social cohesion models expanded beyond known parameters. One line of text blinked on the central display. Earth, Deathworld classification pending review. Pending. Never before had a world moved up the scale. The humans sat up as medical systems disengaged. Mara glanced at the display, then back at Kelrix. "You simulated a Class 15 Deathworld," she said. "And you're surprised we handled it?" Kelrix inclined his head. "Your homeworld prepared you beyond our comprehension." Mara's expression softened. "No," she said quietly. "Our homeworld challenged us. We prepared each other." That answer struck deeper than any data point. One of the elder observers finally spoke. "If such environments forge such beings, then death worlds are not curses. They are crucibles," Kelrix said. The humans were cleared for movement. As they stood, unsteady but upright, the chamber parted to grant them full visibility of the Accord. Thousands of alien eyes watched them now, not with fear, with something far more dangerous. Respect. The Interstellar Accord had never applauded. Applause was a cultural artifact, an emotional response, not a procedural one. Decisions were acknowledged with consensus tones, outcomes logged with quiet efficiency. But as the humans stood there, scarred, exhausted, unbowed, something unprecedented happened. The crystalline entity emitted a harmonic resonance of approval. The avian delegate spread its wings in a gesture of honor. Others followed, each in their own way. The chamber filled with sound, not noise. Recognition. Mara felt it wash over her, and, for the first time since extraction, the weight of everything they had endured pressed down fully. Her knees threatened to buckle, not from injury, but from the release of tension she had carried since stepping into that world. Jonah steadied her without a word. Kelrix raised his voice. "There is the matter that must now be addressed." The chamber quieted. "The simulation," he continued, "was designed to test survivability. But its failure has exposed a deeper concern." A holographic projection flared to life. It showed data from across known space. Frontier colonies abandoned, exploration missions lost, entire species unable to expand beyond carefully controlled habitats. "Civilization stagnates," Kelrix said, "not from lack of intelligence or technology, but from fear of environments beyond our tolerance." He turned to the humans. "You walk willingly into places others classify as impossible." Mara folded her arms loosely. "We don't always enjoy it." A ripple of subdued amusement passed through the chamber. "But you go anyway," Kelrix said. "Why?" The question hung in the air, not as an accusation, as a genuine attempt to understand. Mara looked at her team. Aisha, who had chosen science because it saved lives. Jonah, who had survived war because someone had to. Lee, who loved unstable worlds because they told honest stories. Sam, who built systems meant to fail gracefully because humans did. Then Mara looked back at the overseer. Because staying still hurts more, she said. The words echoed softly. We don't chase danger, she continued. We chase possibility. And sometimes, those look the same. Silence followed. Then an analyst spoke, voice trembling with significance. The simulation logs indicate something else. During peak stress events, human neural activity showed increased cohesion. Kelrix turned sharply. Explain. They became more themselves, the analyst said, as if adversity clarified identity rather than erasing it. The chamber absorbed that. A realization spread, slow, unsettling, undeniable. Humans were not strong despite their death world. They were strong because of it. One of the elder observers shifted. If humans can endure such worlds, could they help others do the same? Mara smiled, not triumphantly, but warmly. We already do, she said. That's what colonization is. We don't tame worlds. We learn how to live with them. Kelrix felt the final fracture in his certainty. The galaxy had not invited humans into the stars out of generosity. It had done so out of curiosity. Now curiosity was becoming something else. Hope. The Accord convened in full session. Not a committee, not a subcouncil. All of it. Ancient minds whose lifespans span millennia. Networked intelligences that processed probability faster than light. Species who had never shared a chamber together in recorded history. All present, because of 6 humans. The central display no longer showed the simulation. It showed Earth. Blue, white, violet, alive. Death world classification, in tone the archivist core, is a protective designation. It exists to warn, not to judge. Kelrix stood before the assembly, not as an overseer now, but as a witness. Humans were evaluated under the assumption that extreme environments inevitably break sentience, he said. That assumption is incomplete. He gestured, and new data appeared. Human history. Plague survived. Ice ages endured. Wars that should have ended them did not. Natural disasters met with rebuilding instead of retreat. They do not adapt to stability. Kelrix continued. They adapt to change. A murmur rippled through the council. One of the elder minds spoke. If that is true, then the scale itself is flawed. Yes, Kelrix said. It measures environmental hostility, not response. The archivist paused. Then something unprecedented occurred. Proposal accepted, it said. Initiating framework revision. The words carried weight. The death world scale, unchanged for tens of thousands of cycles, began to shift. New metrics appeared. Resilience index, cooperative persistence, recovery capacity, and one final category, adaptive courage. Earth's rating recalculated. Class 12, changed. Not upward. Sideways. Earth was reclassified, not as a warning, but as a training ground. Gasps echoed. Mara watched from the lower platform, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Does this mean people will start sending recruits to Earth? Jonah muttered. Mara smirked. We'll charge tuition. Kelrix turned to them. The Accord wishes to extend a formal request, he said. Mara raised an eyebrow. Request. Partnership, Kelrix corrected. Your species possesses something the galaxy lacks. And what's that? Aisha asked. Kelrix hesitated, then spoke with deliberate care. Faith that survival is worth the pain. Silence followed. Then Mara nodded. We can work with that. The session ended not with consensus tones, but with something dangerously close to admiration. As the humans prepared to depart, the simulation chamber dimmed permanently. It would never be used the same way again, because the galaxy had learned a truth it could not unlearn. Some worlds do not kill you. They teach you how to live. The galaxy did not change overnight. Civilizations rarely do. But change had begun. Exploration fleets once halted by environmental fear now carried human advisors. Terraforming projects were redesigned, not to erase danger, but to respect it. Colonies that would have been abandoned were reinforced instead, guided by a simple philosophy humans had carried since before the stars. Endure first. Improve later. Mara Ellison returned to Earth months later. She stood on a cliff overlooking a violent sea, wind tearing at her jacket, salt stinging her face. Storm clouds rolled in from the horizon, lightning flickering within them. Behind her, Jonah whistled softly. Still looks worse than that simulation. Mara smiled. That's why we love it. Across the galaxy, Kelrix reviewed reports from newly classified adaptive zones. Species once confined to sheltered habitats were surviving, struggling, yes, but learning. The data showed injuries, failures, losses, but also something new. Resilience curves were rising. Communities were forming where none had before. The galaxy was becoming braver. Kelrix paused his review and stared out through the viewport at the stars. "We thought humans were reckless," he said quietly to himself. He activated a final recording from the simulation archives. It showed 6 figures standing against a storm that should have erased them. Linked, unyielding, not because they were immune to pain, but because pain had never taught them to quit. The recording ended on a single line of revised classification text. Humans, Deathworld born. Survival-oriented. Galaxy-proven. Kelrix closed the file. For the first time in his long life, he felt something close to humility, because the truth was now undeniable. Humanity had not asked for a harder world out of arrogance. They had asked because hardship was familiar, because adversity was a language they already spoke, because when the universe tried to break them, they answered together. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human. If this story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars. Milky Way.